The stars looked different today. Commander Zethara stared at the main screen of her flagship and felt something she had not felt in many years. Curiosity mixed with unease. Her fleet of 12 warships moved through the neutral zone between territories. They were the best ships the Velkari Confederacy had ever built. Each one was a masterpiece of engineering, fast and deadly, but now her sensors were showing something impossible. "Commander, we have an anomaly," said Jenrick, her tactical officer. He was young but skilled. His voice carried a hint of confusion. "There is a massive object ahead. The computer cannot identify it." Zethara leaned forward in her command chair. "Show me." The image appeared on screen. At first it looked like a small moon. Then the sensors provided scale measurements. Zethara's eyes widened. This was no moon. This was a structure, a ship. But the size made no sense. It was nearly 8 kilometers long. Nothing that large could be a ship. Nothing should be that large. "It must be a station," said War Leader Talmor from his position. He was her second in command, aggressive and proud. Some kind of mobile habitat or construction platform. Corvin, the science officer, worked at his console. His fingers moved quickly across the controls. "Commander, I am reading energy signatures." "Very low output. The object appears to be on minimal power. Almost dormant. A derelict?" Zethara asked, perhaps. "But the power systems are still active." "Just barely." Corvin paused. He read his display again, as if checking his own readings. "Commander, even at idle, this object produces more power than our entire fleet combined." Silence fell across the bridge. Talmor laughed, breaking the tension. "That cannot be right. Check your instruments," but Corvin did not laugh. "I have checked 3 times. The readings are accurate." Zethara studied the massive shape on her screen. Its surface was dark gray, almost black. She could see no lights, no obvious weapons, no markings she recognized. It simply drifted through space, silent and enormous. "Take us closer," she ordered. Slowly. Maintain scanning protocols. The fleet moved forward. As they approached, more details became visible. The hull was smooth but segmented. Large plates of armor covered the surface. There were structures that might be sensor arrays or communication dishes, and there were closed bays, dozens of them running along the flanks. Inside the massive vessel, Captain Daniel Hayes stood on the bridge of the USS Colossus. He was a tall man with short brown hair and calm eyes. He had commanded ships for 15 years, but this was his first time in charge of something this big. The Colossus was humanity's first Titan-class battleship. It was the largest warship ever built by human hands. "Captain, we have contacts," said Lieutenant Lisa Grant from the communication station. She was young, barely 30, with sharp eyes and quick reflexes. 12 vessels approaching our position. Unknown design. They are scanning us." Hayes nodded slowly. "Oracle analysis." The ship's artificial intelligence responded immediately. Oracle's voice was calm and neutral. "Vessels are of alien origin. Technology level appears comparable to early human military designs. No weapons are charged. Threat assessment, minimal." "They found us," said Commander Amy Walsh. She was Hayes' executive officer, a woman with 20 years of service and a reputation for being thorough. "First contact with alien life. This is historic." Hayes allowed himself a small smile. "Indeed it is. Battle stations, but keep the main reactor at idle. I do not want to appear aggressive. Let us see what they do." Throughout the Colossus, 5,000 crew members moved to their positions. The ship remained dark, running on auxiliary power. To the alien fleet, it would look dormant, possibly abandoned. That was intentional. Hayes wanted to observe these newcomers before revealing the full capabilities of his ship. Lieutenant Commander Paul Stevens sat at the tactical station. He was a quiet man, precise and careful. His fingers hovered over the weapon controls, ready but not yet activating anything. "Captain, they are increasing their scan intensity. Active sensors are painting us." "Let them look," Hayes said. "Grant, can you intercept their communications?" Lisa Grant worked at her console. "Yes, sir." "They are transmitting on multiple frequencies. The computer is building a translation matrix. Give me 2 minutes." On the Velkari flagship, Silena, the translation officer, worked at her own station. She was trying to analyze the silent giant before them. "Commander, I am detecting no active transmissions from the object. No hails, no identification signals. It is simply there." Zethara frowned. "Try to contact them. Standard first contact protocols. Selena sent out a message in multiple languages and formats. It was a simple greeting, a request for identification. The message traveled across space to the dark ship. There was no response. Nothing, Commander. They do not respond. Talmor crossed his arms. It is a derelict, an abandoned colony ship or mobile base. The power readings are just residual energy from old reactors. But Corvin was shaking his head. He stared at his instruments with growing concern. Commander, I need to show you something. These power readings, I have been analyzing them carefully. He transferred data to Zathara's personal display. Zathara looked at the numbers. Her blood ran cold. This cannot be correct. I have verified it multiple times, Corvin said quietly. That ship, even at minimal power, generates more energy than our entire home system. Not just our fleet, our entire civilization's power generation. The reactor inside that vessel is... I do not have words for it. Zathara felt the weight of command pressing down on her. She had served the Velkari Confederacy for 70 cycles. She had fought in wars, explored unknown space, made first contact with a dozen species. But this was different. This was something new. There must be an error, she said, but her voice lacked conviction. Commander, Jenrick spoke up. I am detecting structural details. That vessel has weapon bays, hundreds of them, and launch tubes for smaller craft. I count at least 200 individual launch points. On the Colossus, Lisa Grant looked up from her station. Captain, I have the translation matrix ready. The alien fleet is Velkari. They are confused about us. They think we might be abandoned. Hayes considered this. What is their military capability? Oracle responded. Analysis complete. The Velkari vessels use plasma-based weapons and conventional shield technology. Their ships are designed for fleet coordination and numerical superiority. Individual vessel capability is moderate. They are no threat to us, Walsh observed. Perhaps not, Hayes agreed, but we should not assume hostile intent. They are simply investigating an unknown object in their space. We would do the same. He stood from his command chair and straightened his uniform. Grant, prepare a first contact package. Let them know we are here, who we are, and that we mean no harm. Yes, sir. But before Grant could send the message, alarms began to sound. Stevens called out from tactical. Captain, the alien fleet is charging weapons. They are taking aggressive posture. Hayes's calm expression did not change, but his voice grew harder. Why? Unknown, sir. They are targeting us with active weapon locks. On the Velkari flagship, Talmor had made a decision without consulting his commander. He had ordered the fleet to take combat formation. If this is a derelict, we should secure it. If it is operational, we should show strength. Zathara turned sharply. War leader, I did not authorize weapons hot. Standard procedure, Commander. We must show this unknown vessel that we are not to be dismissed. Before Zathara could countermand the order, Selena gasped. Commander! The vessel is responding. I am receiving a transmission. The bridge fell silent. Everyone listened as the translation came through. The voice was calm but firm. It spoke in their language, translated by the unknown ship's computers. Alien vessels, this is Captain Daniel Hayes of the United Earth Systems Navy battleship Colossus. You are conducting hostile targeting operations against a military vessel. Power down your weapons and withdraw to a respectful distance, or we will interpret your actions as an act of war. The words hung in the air. A military vessel. A battleship. Zathara felt her hearts racing. This was no derelict. This was a warship. And they had just threatened it. Talmor, stand down immediately, she ordered. But Talmor's pride was wounded. He stared at the massive ship on the screen and saw only a challenge. One ship against our entire fleet? These humans are either bluffing or insane. We should teach them respect. War leader, that is an order, Zathara said, her voice sharp. But Talmor had already made his choice. His hand moved across his console. Firing warning shot. Let them see our power. A single plasma torpedo launched from one of the Velkari cruisers. It streaked through space, bright and deadly, aimed to pass just ahead of the massive human ship. A warning. A show of force. On the Colossus, every alarm on the ship screamed at once, incoming fire. Stevens shouted, Hayes's eyes narrowed. Defensive protocols. Show them what they are dealing with. The torpedo hit the Colossus's forward shields and simply vanished. The energy dissipated harmlessly. But the act of firing on a United Earth Systems Navy vessel had triggered something. Something that could not be taken back. The sleeping giant was about to wake up. The plasma torpedo hit the shields and disappeared. Inside the Colossus, the crew barely felt the impact. It was like throwing a pebble at a mountain. Commander Amy Walsh looked at her display and then at Captain Hayes. Her expression said everything. That was their best shot? Hayes stood from his chair. His voice remained calm, but there was steel in it now. They fired on us. That changes everything. Walsh, bring the ship to full combat readiness. I want main power online in 30 seconds. Yes, sir. Walsh's fingers flew across her console. Throughout the massive ship, systems that had been sleeping suddenly roared to life. The main reactor, a fusion core the size of a city block, began its startup sequence. Power surged through the Colossus like blood through veins. Lights came on across 8 kilometers of warship. Weapon systems initialized. Shield generators moved from standby to full power. Armor plates that had been locked in place began to shift, revealing the weapons hidden beneath. Lieutenant Commander Paul Stevens watched his tactical board light up like a holiday display. All weapons coming online. Point defense grids active. Main railgun charging. Fighter bays preparing for launch. Sir, we are at full combat status. Hayes nodded once. Good. Grant, open a channel to the alien fleet. All frequencies. I want them to hear this clearly. Channel open, sir. Hayes took a breath. When he spoke, his voice carried the weight of command. Alien fleet, you have committed an act of war against the United Earth systems. You have one opportunity to stand down. Power down all weapons, transmit your surrender, and prepare to be boarded. You have 60 seconds to comply. On the Valkyrie flagship, chaos erupted. Every alarm on the bridge was screaming. Corvin stared at his displays with wide eyes, his hands shaking. The numbers made no sense. They could not be real. Commander, he shouted over the alarms. The vessel is powering up. Energy output is increasing by factors of hundreds. No, thousands. This is impossible. Zathara gripped her command chair. On the main screen, the dark ship was transforming. Lights blazed across its hull. Sections of armor were moving, opening to reveal row after row of weapons. She could see railgun turrets, missile pods, energy weapon arrays. There were hundreds of them. Maybe thousands by the ancestors, she whispered. What have we done? Jenric's voice cracked. Commander, I am reading power spikes across the entire vessel. Whatever was dormant is now fully active. The energy output is beyond anything in our database. It is beyond anything we thought possible. Talmor stared at the screen. For the first time in his long military career, he felt something he had never experienced in battle. Fear. Real, cold fear. That ship was running on backup power. It was barely awake. And we attacked it. Corvin pulled up a comparison chart. His hands trembled as he showed it to Zathara. Commander, look. This is our fleet's total power output. And this, he highlighted another section, is that ship at full power. We are not even a fraction of 1%. We are nothing compared to them. Zathara's mind raced. The Valkyrie Confederacy had ruled this region of space for 3,000 years. They had built an empire through superior technology and military might. They had defeated every enemy they had ever faced. They had never encountered anything they could not match or overcome, until now. Selena, the translation officer, spoke in a small voice. Commander, the humans are waiting for our response. 50 seconds remaining. Talmor straightened. His pride would not let him back down. We cannot surrender to one ship. We have 12 vessels, 12. We can overwhelm them with numbers. Attack from all sides. They cannot target all of us at once. Corvin spun in his chair. Are you insane? That ship has more weapons than our entire fleet combined. I am reading point defense systems. Thousands of them. They could shoot down every missile we launch. They could destroy every fighter we send. And that is just their defensive weapons. We do not know that for certain, Talmor argued. Sensors can be deceived. This might be a bluff. Humans might be weak. They might have one big ship but no real ability to use it. Jenric interrupted. War leader, I have been analyzing the hull structure. That armor is layered composite materials, at least 15 meters thick. Our plasma torpedoes would barely scratch it. And I am detecting shield generators, multiple overlapping fields. Sir, this is not a bluff. This is a fortress that can move through space. Zathara closed her eyes. She thought of her crew. She thought of the thousands of Valkyrie serving on the 12 ships under her command. She thought of their families waiting at home. She thought of her duty to bring them back alive. 30 seconds, Commander, Selena said quietly. On the Colossus, Hayes waited. He stood in the center of his bridge, hands clasped behind his back. He appeared calm, but his mind was working through scenarios. He did not want to destroy these ships. First contact should not end in slaughter, but if they attacked, he would do what was necessary. Walsh stood beside him. "Sir, what if they do not surrender?" "Then we show them why humanity builds ships this big," Hayes replied. "But I am hoping it does not come to that," Stevens called out. 20 seconds. The alien fleet is holding position. No further hostile acts, but they have not powered down their weapons either. Lisa Grant monitored the communications channels. "Sir, I am detecting increased chatter between the alien vessels. They are arguing about something. The translation is not perfect, but I think there is disagreement about what to do." Hayes nodded. "That is good. It means they are thinking. Fear can make people do stupid things, but so can pride. We need them to choose wisdom over either." On the Valkyrie flagship, Zethara opened her eyes. She had made her decision. "Power down all weapons. Transmit a message to the human vessel. Tell them we are standing down. Tell them there was a terrible mistake. Tell them we wish to speak peacefully." Talmor stepped forward. "Commander, you cannot be serious."
"We are the Valkyrie!"
"We do not surrender." Zethara turned to face him. Her voice was cold. "War leader, I am relieving you of duty. You fired on an unknown vessel without authorization. You started this situation. Now I will end it. Security. Escort war leader Talmor to his quarters. He is confined until further notice." Guards moved forward. Talmor looked around the bridge, but no one met his eyes. He had gone too far. He had endangered them all. Silently, he allowed himself to be led away. Zethara took a breath. "Selena, send the message. All ships, power down weapons and shields. Move to non-threatening positions." "Yes, Commander." Hayes watched his displays as the alien fleet's energy signatures changed. Weapons going offline, shields dropping, the vessels moving to open formation. He allowed himself to relax slightly. "Sir, receiving transmission from the alien fleet," Grant reported. "They are apologizing. They say there was a misunderstanding. They are requesting peaceful dialogue." Walsh looked at Hayes. "What do you think?" "I think they just learned an important lesson," Hayes said. "Stevens, keep weapons hot but do not target them directly. I want them to know we are still watching." Grant, respond to their message. "Tell them I will speak with their commander, but make it clear that one more aggressive act and we will respond with overwhelming force." "Yes, sir." Hayes sat back in his command chair. He pulled up a private channel to Walsh. "We just made first contact with an alien species by almost destroying their fleet. Earth Command is going to have a lot of questions about this." Walsh smiled slightly. "At least we did not destroy them. That would have been much harder to explain." "True. But this encounter is going to change everything. These Valkyrie thought they were the dominant power in this region. Now they know they are not. How they react to that knowledge will determine whether we become friends or enemies." On the Valkyrie flagship, Zethara sat in her command chair and tried to process what had just happened. In the span of minutes, everything she thought she knew about the universe had changed. There was another species out here, humans, and they had technology that made the Valkyrie look primitive. Korvan approached her quietly. "Commander, I have completed a full analysis of the human vessel. The results are disturbing. Show me." He transferred data to her display. Zethara read through it, and with each line her concern grew. The ship was called Colossus. It was 8 kilometers long and massed 6 billion tons. The armor could withstand direct hits from weapons far more powerful than anything the Valkyrie possessed. The shields could absorb damage that would vaporize entire fleets. The weapons could destroy planets, and this was just one ship. "Korvan, how many of these ships do the humans have?" The science officer shook his head. "Unknown. But based on what we have seen, they may not need many. One of these vessels could control an entire star system. A handful could dominate a region. A fleet of them would be unstoppable." Zethara felt very old suddenly. She had spent her life believing the Valkyrie were special, chosen, destined to rule the stars. But the universe was bigger than she had imagined, and humanity had just proven that the Valkyrie were not the apex predators they thought they were. "Selena, prepare a detailed report for the High Council. Include everything. Every scan, every measurement, every detail about the human ship. They need to know what we have encountered." "Yes, Commander." Zethara looked at the image of the Colossus on her screen. The massive warship sat there, weapons ready, watching her fleet like a predator. Captain Daniel Hayes stood in the conference room aboard the Colossus. The room was enormous, designed to host diplomatic meetings and military briefings. Right now it felt too large and too empty. He was waiting for the Velkhari commander to arrive for their first face-to-face meeting. Commander Amy Walsh stood beside him, reviewing data on a tablet. Their shuttle just docked. Security reports they have a small party, 5 individuals. No weapons detected, Hayes nodded. Good. Let us hope this goes better than our first encounter. The doors opened. A squad of human marines stood at attention as the Velkhari delegation entered. Hayes got his first look at an alien species. The Velkhari were humanoid, but clearly not human. They stood slightly shorter than average humans with skin that had a faint blue tint. Their eyes were larger, adapted for lower light perhaps. They moved with grace and purpose. Commander ZeThara led the group. She wore what was clearly a military uniform, dark blue with silver markings. Her expression was difficult to read, but Hayes could see intelligence in her eyes. And caution. Commander ZeThara, Hayes said, using the translation device that hung around his neck. Welcome aboard the Colossus. I am Captain Daniel Hayes. ZeThara inclined her head in what might have been a bow. Captain Hayes, thank you for agreeing to meet. I must begin with an apology. What happened earlier was a terrible mistake. War leader Talmor acted without proper authority. His actions do not represent the will of the Velkhari Confederacy. Hayes studied her carefully. She seemed sincere. I appreciate your honesty, Commander. However, we cannot ignore that your fleet fired on a military vessel. In human space, that is considered an act of war. I need to understand why it happened. ZeThara gestured to one of her officers. Corvin stepped forward. He was smaller than ZeThara, with nervous eyes. Captain, I am Corvin, science officer. When we first detected your vessel, our sensors showed minimal power output. We believed you were either a derelict or some kind of mobile station. We had no idea you were a military warship operating at reduced power. That explains the confusion, Hayes said. But not the firing. ZeThara's expression showed something that might have been shame. War leader Talmor was a proud individual. When you did not respond to our initial hails, he assumed you were either abandoned or unimportant. He ordered an aggressive sensor sweep, which in Velkhari space is standard procedure for investigating unknowns. When you warned us to stand down, his pride would not allow him to back away without making a show of force. A show of force that nearly started a war, Walsh said quietly. Yes, ZeThara agreed, and for that I take full responsibility. I should have stopped him sooner. I should have recognized the danger. Captain Hayes, I am here to prevent further conflict. The Velkhari Confederacy does not wish to be your enemy. Hayes considered this. He believed her. This was not a species looking for war. They had simply made a mistake based on assumptions. Dangerous assumptions, but still just mistakes. Very well, Hayes said. Let us move forward. But I need you to understand something, Commander. The Colossus is just one ship. Humanity has the capability to build more. Many more. If the Velkhari Confederacy wishes to maintain peaceful relations, there must be mutual respect and clear communication. Corvin spoke again, his voice shaking slightly. Captain, may I ask a question? How many ships like this do humans possess? Hayes exchanged a look with Walsh. She gave a slight nod. Currently, the Colossus is our only Titan-class battleship, but 4 more are under construction. Additionally, humanity has hundreds of smaller warships, cruisers, destroyers, carriers. The Colossus is our flagship, but it is not our only means of defense. ZeThara absorbed this information. 5 ships of this size. That would be enough to dominate this entire region of space. Humanity is not interested in domination, Hayes replied. We are explorers first. We came to this region seeking knowledge and potential allies. What we found was your fleet. How this relationship develops from here depends on both of our choices. The Velkhari delegation seemed to relax slightly. ZeThara gestured to her officers, and they began discussing among themselves in their own language. Hayes waited patiently. Lieutenant Lisa Grant had positioned herself at a nearby console, monitoring the translations to ensure nothing was missed. After a moment, ZeThara turned back to Hayes. Captain, I would like to propose something. The Velkhari Confederacy controls this region. But we are not alone. There are many other species here. Some are friendly, some are not. If humans are to operate in this space, you should be introduced properly. The Confederacy could serve as intermediary, We could help you make contact with other civilizations in a peaceful manner. Hayes raised an eyebrow. Why would you offer this? Because it is in our best interest, ZeThara said honestly. If humanity is going to be a presence in this region, better that we be your friends than your enemies. And better that you meet other species through peaceful channels rather than through conflict. What happened between us today could happen again with others. Next time it might end differently. It was a practical offer. Hayes appreciated the honesty. I will need to consult with my government, but I think your proposal has merit. In the meantime, perhaps we could exchange some basic information. Tell me about this region. Who are these other species? ZeThara smiled slightly. It was the first time Hayes had seen anything approaching friendliness from her. Of course. Corvin, please provide the captain with our star charts and a summary of the major civilizations. Corvin approached a console and began working. Within moments, holographic displays filled the air above the conference table. Star systems appeared marked with different colors. Trade routes, territorial boundaries, important locations. This region encompasses approximately 200 inhabited star systems, Corvin explained. The Velkari Confederacy controls 40 systems directly and maintains alliance with another 30. The Krillian Union holds 50 systems to our galactic north. They are merchants primarily, not warriors. The Draxian Empire controls the southern territories. They are more aggressive and expansionist. How will these other species react to humanity's presence? Walsh asked. That depends, ZeThara replied. The Krillians will want to trade with you. They are always seeking new markets and new technologies. The Draxians will view you as either a threat or a potential conquest. There are also smaller independent species scattered throughout. Pirates, merchant guilds, religious enclaves. It is a complex political landscape. Hayes studied the star charts carefully. This was valuable intelligence. Earth Command would want all of this information. Commander, this is very helpful. I think we should continue these discussions. But I will need to send a report to my superiors and receive guidance on how to proceed. Of course, ZeThara agreed. We should also send word to our High Council. They will want to know about humanity and the Colossus. She paused. Captain, may I ask what you were doing in this region? If this was simply a patrol or exploration mission, you ventured quite far from human space. The Colossus is on its shakedown cruise, Hayes explained. This is our first major voyage since the ship was completed. We were testing systems, training the crew, exploring the outer reaches of known space. Finding you was unexpected, Corvin spoke up. A shakedown cruise. So this vessel is brand new. Your first ship of this class, and you are still learning how to operate it. He seemed to find this both terrifying and reassuring. We are quite capable of operating it, Walsh said firmly. Every crew member has been trained extensively. The ship's systems are functioning perfectly. I do not doubt it, Corvin said quickly. I simply meant that if this is your first attempt, your next generation will be even more advanced. That is a sobering thought. Hayes allowed himself a small smile.
Humanity has always believed in continuous improvement.
We learn from our mistakes and build better things. The Colossus represents years of research and development. But yes, the next class of ships will incorporate everything we learn from this one. The meeting continued for another hour. They discussed communication protocols, safe zones where both fleets could operate without concern, and the basics of trade and diplomacy. By the end, Hayes felt they had made real progress. The Velkari were practical people. They recognized that cooperation was better than conflict. As the Velkari delegation prepared to leave, ZeThara approached Hayes privately. Captain, may I speak frankly? Please do. The Velkari have ruled this region for 3,000 years. We thought we were the pinnacle of civilization. Today you showed us we were wrong. That is difficult for my people to accept. There will be those in our government who see humanity as a threat, who will argue for building weapons to counter your ships. Please understand that this will take time. Hayes nodded. I understand. Humanity faced similar moments in our history. When we first reached space and realized how vast the universe was, it was humbling. We learned that being strong does not mean being alone. I hope the Velkari can learn the same lesson. I will do everything in my power to ensure peaceful relations, ZeThara promised. But Captain, you should know that word of the Colossus will spread quickly. Every civilization within 100 light-years will hear. 50 light-years away from the Colossus on a Krillian monitoring station, Junior Technician Vexith was having a very unusual day. He had been working the night shift. watching sensor displays that usually showed nothing but background radiation and the occasional passing comet. It was boring work. That was why they gave it to junior technicians. But tonight his screens had erupted with impossible readings. Vexith stared at the energy signature display and rubbed his eyes. The numbers made no sense. There had been a spike of power in the neutral zone between Velkari and Draxian space. A massive spike. Bigger than anything he had ever seen. Bigger than anything in the training manuals. He ran the diagnostics 3 times. The equipment was working perfectly. This was real. With shaking hands, Vexith composed a priority alert and sent it to his supervisor. Then he sent it to Station Command. Then, because he was scared and excited and confused all at once, he sent it to the Krillian High Council. Someone important needed to see this. Within hours, every major government in the region had received similar reports. Sensor stations, military outposts, and civilian monitoring posts had all detected the same thing. Something enormous had powered up in neutral space. Something that made conventional warships look like toys. In the Draxian Empire, Admiral Corax read the reports with growing interest. He was an old warrior, scarred and experienced. He had fought in dozens of campaigns and conquered 7 star systems for the Empire. He recognized a game-changer when he saw one. "What do we know?" he asked his intelligence officer. "Very little, Admiral. The vessel appeared to be dormant initially. The Velkari sent a fleet to investigate. There was some kind of confrontation. Then the vessel activated fully. The power output was beyond anything in our databases. Current intelligence suggests it is a warship of unknown origin." Corax leaned back in his chair. "A new player. Interesting. What happened to the Velkari fleet?" "They survived. In fact, they appear to be in negotiations with the unknown vessel. Our sources suggest the ship identifies as human." "Earth origin? Earth?" Corax searched his memory. "I do not know that world. Neither do we, Admiral. There is no record of humans in any of our databases. They are completely unknown." Corax smiled slowly. "Unknown species with powerful technology. That could be a threat or an opportunity." The Draxian Empire had built its power through conquest and alliance. If these humans could be brought into the Empire's sphere of influence, their technology could tip the balance of power in the region. If they could not be influenced, they would need to be destroyed. "Keep monitoring the situation," Corax ordered. "I want to know everything about these humans. Where they come from, what they want, how many ships they have, and send a message to the Emperor. This development requires his attention." Aboard the Colossus, Lieutenant Lisa Grant had been monitoring subspace communications for the past 6 hours. What she found was both exciting and concerning. "Captain, you need to see this." Captain Daniel Hayes walked over to her station. "What have you got?" Grant pulled up a display showing communication intercepts. "Sir, we are being watched. I have detected at least 30 distinct observation platforms that have oriented their sensors toward our position. Military monitoring stations, civilian research posts, commercial shipping sensors. Everyone in the region knows we are here." Hayes studied the display. The platforms were spread across dozens of star systems. Some belonged to the Velkari. Others were marked as Krillian or Draxian. A few were unidentified. "What are they saying about us?" "That is the interesting part, sir. Most of the chatter is speculation. Nobody seems to know who we are or where we came from. But they all agree on one thing. We are powerful. Very powerful. Some of the messages are calling us a potential game changer. Others are calling us a threat." Commander Amy Walsh joined them. "How long before other species start approaching us?" "Unknown," Grant replied. "But if I had to guess, I would say days at most. Everyone wants to know more about us. Some will be cautious. Others might be aggressive." Hayes turned to Walsh. "We need to inform Earth Command immediately. This situation is evolving quickly. What started as a shakedown cruise has turned into a first contact scenario with multiple species. We need guidance and support." "I agree," Walsh said. "I will prepare a comprehensive report. But, sir, it will take weeks for our message to reach Earth and for their response to get back to us. We may need to make decisions on our own in the meantime." "Then we follow our training," Hayes said. "We are representatives of humanity now. Everything we do reflects on our species. We must be strong but not aggressive, confident but not arrogant. We need to show these civilizations that humans can be trusted." Lieutenant Commander Paul Stevens approached from the tactical station. "Captain, I have been thinking about our situation. We have demonstrated our defensive capabilities. The Velkari know we can protect ourselves, but we have not shown what we can actually do offensively. Some of these other species might test us thinking we are just a big target with shields. Hayes considered this. Stevens had a point. The Colossus had powered up and activated weapons, but they had not actually fired anything except to defend against that one torpedo. Other species watching might think humans were all defense and no offense. What do you suggest? Hayes asked. A demonstration, Stevens replied. Something visible from long range. Something that shows we have teeth. There is an asteroid field about 2 million kilometers from here. We could conduct weapons testing. Legitimate training exercises. But anyone watching with sensors would see what our weapons can do. Walsh nodded slowly. It is a good idea. We can frame it as routine maintenance and training. But the message will be clear. This ship is not just big. It is dangerous. Hayes made his decision. Do it, but Stevens, I want this controlled. Pick your targets carefully. Use a variety of weapon systems so observers get a complete picture. And make sure we are not anywhere near civilian traffic or inhabited systems. This is a demonstration of capability, not a threat. Yes, sir. I will have a plan ready within the hour. 3 hours later, the Colossus moved into position near an asteroid field. The field was uninhabited, far from any trade routes or populated systems. It was perfect for what they needed. Stevens sat at his tactical station, fingers moving across controls. All weapon systems ready, Captain. I have selected 6 asteroids of varying sizes. The demonstration will showcase our railguns, missile systems, energy weapons, and point defense grids. Are we being watched? Hayes asked. Grant checked her displays. Yes, sir. I count at least 15 monitoring platforms with active sensors pointed our way. Whatever we do here will be observed and recorded. Perfect, Hayes said. Stevens, you may begin when ready. Stevens selected the first target, a medium-sized asteroid about half a kilometer across. Firing main railgun. Single shot. The Colossus shuddered slightly as the massive railgun fired. A projectile, accelerated to a significant fraction of light speed, crossed the distance to the asteroid in less than 2 seconds. The impact was spectacular. The asteroid did not crack or break apart. It simply ceased to exist, converted into a cloud of superheated plasma and debris. Walsh whistled softly. That never gets old. Stevens smiled slightly. Target 2. Missile barrage. Dozens of launch tubes opened along the Colossus's flanks. Missiles streaked out, each one tracking toward a larger asteroid. They impacted in a coordinated strike, and the asteroid broke apart into thousands of pieces. Target 3. Point defense demonstration. Stevens selected a cluster of smaller asteroids and designated them as threats. The Colossus's point defense system came alive. Thousands of automated turrets tracked the rocks and opened fire. Laser beams and kinetic rounds filled space. Within seconds, every asteroid in the cluster had been destroyed. Target 4. Energy weapons. Massive particle beam cannons powered up along the ship's dorsal surface. They fired, and brilliant beams of energy lanced across space. The targeted asteroid began to glow, then melt, then vaporize. In less than 10 seconds, it was gone. The demonstration continued for 30 minutes. By the end, Stevens had showcased nearly every weapon system the Colossus possessed. The asteroid field looked very different now. What had been a dense cluster of rocks was now mostly empty space filled with debris. Hayes stood and looked at the displays. That should do it. Anyone watching now knows exactly what we are capable of. Grant, are you still detecting those monitoring platforms? Yes, sir. In fact, I am detecting increased activity. Multiple platforms are transmitting data bursts. I think they are sending reports back to their governments. Good, Hayes said. Let them report. Let every civilization in this region know that humanity is here, and that we have the means to defend ourselves. Perhaps that knowledge will prevent misunderstandings like the one we had with the Velkari. On the Krillian monitoring station, Vexith watched the demonstration with wide eyes. He had seen weapons tests before. Every military in the region conducted them. But this was different. This was overwhelming force displayed with casual efficiency. He updated his report to the High Council. The humans were not just powerful. They were devastatingly powerful. Any species considering aggression against them would be making a fatal mistake. 2 weeks had passed since the encounter with the Velkari fleet. Captain Daniel Hayes sat in his ready room aboard the Colossus reviewing reports from Earth Command. The message had taken 13 days to reach Earth, and another day for the response to arrive. Now he had his orders. The door chimed. "Enter," Hayes called. Commander Amy Walsh stepped inside carrying a data pad. "Sir, we just received a priority transmission from the Velkari. Commander Zethara wants to meet again. She says it is urgent." Hayes set down the reports from Earth. "Did she say what it is about?" "No, sir. Just that it concerns the regional political situation, and that we need to know about certain developments." Hayes considered this. In the past 2 weeks, the Colossus had been approached by 3 other species. The Krillians had sent a trade delegation. A smaller independent system had requested protection from pirates, and there had been several long-range scans from Draxian ships, though they had kept their distance. The galaxy was definitely paying attention to humanity now. "Tell Commander Zethara we will meet her, same location as before. But Walsh, increase security. I want marine patrols doubled and all internal sensors at maximum." "You think there might be trouble?" "I think we should be cautious. Things have been peaceful so far, but that could change quickly." 4 hours later, Zethara arrived with her delegation. But this time she was not alone. With her were representatives from 2 other species. Hayes recognized them from the intelligence briefings. One was Krillian, tall and thin with metallic-looking skin. The other was from a smaller species called the Talani, who looked almost human except for their silver eyes. Zethara made the introductions. "Captain Hayes, this is Trade Master Kelvon of the Krillian Union, and Ambassador Mira of the Talani Federation. They asked to accompany me because they wish to speak with you directly." Hayes shook hands with each of them, using the translation devices. "Welcome aboard the Colossus. Please sit. What brings you all here today?" Zethara looked uncomfortable. "Captain, the situation in this region is becoming complicated. Your presence has changed many calculations. Some species see opportunity. Others see threat. We wanted to speak with you before things escalate further." Kelvon leaned forward. The Krillian's voice was high and musical. "Captain Hayes, the Krillian Union is very interested in establishing trade relations with humanity. We have observed your technology and believe it could be mutually beneficial to exchange goods and knowledge. However, we are concerned about the Draxian Empire's response to your arrival." "The Draxians?" Hayes asked. "We have detected their ships observing us, but they have kept their distance." "Have they made threats?" Ambassador Mira spoke. Her voice was soft but firm. "Not openly. But the Draxians are expansionist by nature. They have been probing our borders for years, testing our defenses. Your arrival has disrupted their plans. They were preparing to annex several independent systems. Now they are uncertain. A species with your military capability changes their strategic calculations." Commander Walsh, standing beside Hayes, spoke up. "Are you saying the Draxians might attack us to eliminate a potential obstacle?" "Unlikely," Zethara said. "They are aggressive but not stupid. Your weapons demonstration 2 weeks ago was observed throughout the region. The Draxians know they cannot match your firepower, but that does not mean they will do nothing. They may try other approaches. Political pressure, economic manipulation, alliances against you." Hayes absorbed this information. "So you are warning us about potential political complications. We are offering to help you navigate them," Kelvon said. "The Krillian Union has extensive trade networks and intelligence-gathering capabilities. We know who the major players are. We understand the politics. If humanity is going to operate in this region, you need allies who can provide guidance." "And what do you want in return?" Walsh asked directly. Kelvon smiled, showing small pointed teeth. "Trade access, technology exchange where appropriate, and most importantly, security. The Krillians are merchants, not warriors. Having humanity as a friend would provide protection against more aggressive species." Mira added, "The Talani feel the same way. We are a small civilization, only 3 star systems, but we are strategically located. We could serve as a diplomatic hub for human activities in this region. In exchange, we would ask for a mutual defense agreement. Your presence alone would deter the Draxians from threatening us." Hayes leaned back in his chair. This was moving quickly. Earth Command's orders had been clear. Establish peaceful contact, gather intelligence, avoid entangling alliances. But the reality on the ground was complicated. These species were offering genuine help, but they wanted something in return. "I appreciate your offers," Hayes said carefully, "but I cannot make formal agreements without authorization from my government. What I can do is facilitate communication between you and Earth. We can begin discussions about trade and cooperation, but any military alliances would require extensive negotiations." Zethara nodded. That is reasonable. But Captain, time may be a factor. The longer humanity remains undefined in the regional power structure, the more unstable things become. Species are choosing sides, drawing lines. If humans do not establish clear relationships soon, you may find yourselves isolated. Or worse, Kelvon added, you may find yourselves the target of a coalition. The Draxians are already reaching out to other expansionist groups. If they convince enough species that humanity is a threat, they could assemble a significant force. Walsh glanced at Hayes. They both knew that even a coalition fleet would have trouble against the Colossus. But one ship could not be everywhere, and if Earth's other vessels were drawn into conflict, it would strain resources and potentially spark a larger war. What do you suggest? Hayes asked. Mira spoke. A conference? A gathering of regional powers. Humans, Velkari, Krillians, Talani, and others. Even the Draxians should be invited. We discuss openly what humanity's presence means. We establish basic agreements, trade protocols, territorial boundaries, mutual defense principles. Nothing formal yet, but enough to reduce tensions. It was a good idea. Hayes could see the benefits. A neutral meeting where everyone could voice their concerns and interests. It would not solve everything, but it would establish communication channels. I will propose this to my superiors, Hayes said, but I think it has merit. Where would this conference take place? The Talani Federation would be honored to host, Mira offered. Our capital system is centrally located and considered neutral ground. We have diplomatic facilities suitable for multi-species gatherings. Very well. I will send a recommendation to Earth Command. In the meantime, I would like to continue informal discussions with each of you. Understanding this region's politics and economics will help humanity make informed decisions. The meeting continued for another 2 hours. They discussed trade goods, cultural differences, historical conflicts between species, and potential areas of cooperation. By the end, Hayes had a much clearer picture of the complex web of relationships that governed this part of space. After the delegates left, Hayes and Walsh remained in the conference room. This is getting complicated fast, Walsh observed. Yes, Hayes agreed. We thought we were just exploring. Instead, we triggered a political realignment of an entire region. The Colossus represents such a significant power shift that every species here has to reconsider their position. Do you think the Draxians will actually try to organize opposition against us? Hayes considered the question. I think they will explore their options. The Draxians built their empire through military conquest. Now they face a power they cannot conquer. That must be frustrating for them. But frustration can lead to poor decisions. We need to make sure they understand that cooperation is better than conflict. And if they do not, then we show them why humanity survived and prospered in a hostile universe. We are not conquerors, Walsh, but we are survivors, and we protect our interests. Lieutenant Lisa Grant entered the room. Captain, we have a priority message from Earth Command. They have reviewed your reports and approved the conference proposal. They are also sending additional diplomatic staff and military advisors. ETA 3 weeks, Hayes smiled. Good, the cavalry's coming. In the meantime, we continue as we have been. Professional, cautious, and always ready. Sir, there is more, Grant continued. Earth Command is accelerating the Titan-class program. They want 4 more ships operational within 2 years. They are also authorizing the construction of a forward operating base in this region. Humanity is committing to a permanent presence here. Walsh whistled softly. They are not wasting time. No, Hayes agreed. Earth sees the same opportunities and threats we do. This region represents new markets, new allies, and new resources, but it also represents potential danger if we do not establish ourselves properly. The Colossus opened the door. Now we have to walk through it carefully. Over the next week, preparations began for the conference. Messages were sent to all major regional powers. Diplomatic protocols were established. The Talani prepared their facilities. And throughout it all, the Colossus remained in its position, a silent reminder of humanity's presence and power. On monitoring stations across dozens of star systems, technicians, 3 months after first contact, the conference room on Talani Prime was filled with representatives from 15 different species. Captain Daniel Hayes stood at one end of the long table, now joined by Director Helen Crawford, Earth's chief diplomatic officer. She had arrived 2 weeks earlier with a full diplomatic team and military advisors. Hayes was grateful for her presence. Diplomacy was not his specialty. Director Crawford was a formidable woman in her 50s with sharp eyes and decades of negotiating experience. She had served in the diplomatic corps for 30 years and handled first contact situations on 3 previous occasions. But those had been with individual species. This was different. This was regional politics involving multiple civilizations with complex histories. "Shall we begin?" Crawford asked, her voice carrying authority without aggression. The room settled. Hayes observed the attendees carefully. Commander Zethara represented the Velkari. Trademaster Kelvon spoke for the Krillians. Ambassador Mira hosted for the Talani. And at the far end of the table sat General Vron, the Draxian representative. He was a large being, heavily muscled with dark scales and piercing yellow eyes. He had been silent since arriving, but his presence dominated the room. Crawford began. "Thank you all for attending. Humanity's arrival in this region was unexpected for everyone, including us. We did not come seeking conquest or dominance. We came exploring. But our presence has changed the situation here, and we believe open dialogue is the best path forward." "Pretty words," General Vron rumbled. His voice was deep and harsh. "But actions speak louder. You arrive with a warship that could destroy fleets. You demonstrate weapons that make our best technology look primitive, and you expect us to believe you seek only friendship?" Hayes had expected this. The Draxians were direct, sometimes brutally so. "General Vron, we demonstrated our capabilities because we wanted to avoid misunderstandings. The Velkari fleet fired on us because they did not know what we were. We showed what we could do so that others would not make the same mistake. Would you prefer we had kept our weapons hidden until someone forced us to use them in combat?" Vron's eyes narrowed, but he did not respond immediately. Zethara spoke up. "Captain Hayes is correct. The demonstration prevented further incidents. Since that day, there have been no hostile actions toward the Colossus. Knowledge created caution. Caution created peace," Kelvon added his voice. "The Krillian Union agrees. We have studied human behavior over these past months. Your crew has been professional and respectful. You have not made territorial claims. You have not interfered in local affairs. You have simply existed and defended yourselves. That is not the behavior of conquerors." Crawford nodded toward them, acknowledging the support. "Humanity wishes to establish several things today. First, territorial boundaries. Earth claims no systems in this region currently. However, we are constructing a forward operating base in an uninhabited system designated as Waypoint Alpha. This will serve as our regional headquarters. We will respect existing territorial claims and expect the same in return. Second," Crawford continued, "trade agreements. Earth is willing to engage in commerce with any species here. We have technologies that may interest you. We are interested in your technologies as well. Fair exchange based on mutual benefit. And third, security arrangements. Humanity will not tolerate aggression against our vessels or facilities. We will defend ourselves vigorously. However, we are also willing to discuss mutual defense agreements with species who share our values of peaceful coexistence." General Vron leaned forward. "You speak of defense. But what of offense? Your ship is designed for war. When will humanity decide to use it for expansion? When will you decide that this region should be under Earth's control?" Crawford met his gaze without flinching. "General, I will be honest with you. Humanity builds powerful warships because our history taught us the cost of being unprepared. We have fought terrible wars among ourselves. We have nearly destroyed our own world more than once. We learned that strength prevents conflict more often than weakness invites peace. The Colossus exists to protect human interests, not to conquer others. But," she added firmly, "if humanity is threatened, we will respond. If our allies are attacked, we will defend them. If pirates or raiders target our ships, we will eliminate them. We are not pacifists, General. We are pragmatists. Cooperation is better for everyone. But we will not be victims." Silence filled the room. Hayes watched Vron's expression. The Draxian general was processing this, calculating. Finally, Vron spoke again. "The Draxian Empire respects strength. We do not trust weakness. What you describe is acceptable. As long as human expansion does not interfere with Draxian territories, we have no quarrel." It was not exactly friendship, but it was acknowledgement. Hayes allowed himself to relax slightly. If the Draxians were willing to coexist, the biggest potential threat was manageable. The conference continued for 3 days. Details were worked out. Trade protocols were established. Communication channels were opened. Territorial boundaries were clarified. By the end, a basic framework existed for humanity's integration into the regional community. On the final day, after the formal sessions ended, Zethara approached Hayes privately. They stood on a balcony overlooking the Talani capital, watching the alien sunset paint the sky in colors Earth had never seen. "Captain Hayes, I wanted to thank you," Zethara said quietly. "3 months ago, my pride and my subordinates' arrogance nearly started a war. You could have destroyed my fleet. Instead, you showed restraint. You turned enemies into allies. That takes wisdom," Hayes smiled. "Commander, you made the right choice when it mattered. You stood down. You chose dialogue over combat. That took courage. The Velkari are honorable people. I am glad we are on the same side now." "What will happen now?" Zethara asked. "More human ships will come. Your forward base will be built. How will this region change?" "I think it will change for the better," Hayes replied. "Humanity brings new perspectives, new technologies, new opportunities, but we also learn from others. The Velkari have governed this region for millennia. The Krillians have built extensive trade networks. The Draxians have military traditions we can study. Everyone has something to offer. Together we can build something better than any of us could alone." Zethara looked at him thoughtfully. "You truly believe that?" "I do. Humanity learned long ago that isolation leads to stagnation. We are better when we work with others, when we learn from different perspectives. The universe is too big and too dangerous for any species to face alone." Zethara nodded slowly. "Perhaps you are right. The Velkari spent 3,000 years believing we were the apex, that we were special. Your arrival humbled us. But perhaps that humility was needed. Perhaps we had grown arrogant. Every civilization faces that moment," Hayes said. "The moment when they realize the universe is bigger than their understanding. How they respond determines their future. The Velkari responded with wisdom. That speaks well of your people." 6 months later, Hayes stood on the observation deck of the Colossus. The ship was in orbit around Waypoint Alpha, humanity's new forward base. Construction crews worked around the clock, building docking facilities, defense platforms, and habitat modules. 2 additional human cruisers had arrived to provide support. The base would be operational within a year. Commander Amy Walsh joined him at the viewport. "Quite a change from our shakedown cruise, sir." Hayes chuckled. "That is an understatement. We came out here to test systems and train crew. Instead, we made first contact with 15 species, nearly started a war, demonstrated our weapons to an entire region, and helped establish humanity's first permanent presence outside our immediate space. Earth Command has sent our next orders," Walsh said. "The Colossus is to conduct a tour of the region, visit allied systems, show the flag, demonstrate humanity's commitment to peaceful relations. A diplomatic mission," Hayes said. "I can live with that. Better than combat any day." "Sir, do you think we will ever have to use the Colossus in actual combat?" Hayes was quiet for a moment. "I hope not. But if we do, we will be ready. That is the point of ships like this. They exist to prevent war through strength. If everyone knows we can fight, maybe we never have to. That is the best outcome. And if someone tests us anyway, then we show them why humanity survived every challenge we ever faced. We adapt. We overcome, we win. But I would rather make friends than enemies, Walsh. Friends are more valuable in the long run." They stood together watching the construction work. Around them, the galaxy turned. On dozens of worlds, alien civilizations conducted their business. Trade routes hummed with activity. Diplomats negotiated agreements. Scientists shared discoveries. And military forces maintained vigilance, ready but not aggressive. The Colossus had changed everything. Not through conquest or destruction, but through presence. Through the simple act of existing and demonstrating capability. The balance of power had shifted. Old assumptions had crumbled. New possibilities had emerged. In shipyards orbiting Earth, 4 more Titan-class battleships took shape. Each one incorporated lessons learned from the Colossus. Each one would be slightly better, slightly more capable. In 50 years, there would be 20 such vessels. In a century, 50. Humanity was here to stay.